I was like, you know what? This is an accounting approach to a behavioral problem.
Yeah. Well, hey, Dr. Valerie, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing all right. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to talk with you about no way and using behavioral change and behavioral modification in the area of weight loss and healthy lifestyles. But before we dive into that too much, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what got you to doing what you're doing now with No Way.
All right. I'm an educational psychologist and board certified behavior analyst. And behavior analysis, for those who aren't familiar, is an approach that looks at the interconnection between responses and their contexts. Behavior analysis is taking the point of view of an objective observer
Okay.
and looking at kind of factual information and collecting the variables that are at play. And it's also a very optimistic approach to psychology, because the assumption that behavior analysis always begins with is that there is something that we can use as a starting point and grow and influence into something that's more useful for the individual. If we're talking about weight loss, it's something that's more of a helpful habit, or even just evolving some patterns of responding into something that's more useful and consistent with where we want our lives to go. And I am also a weight loss app user, or former user. And as an adult, I had a realization while I was becoming very frustrated with the budgeting and the documenting. Being on my phone all the time really became intolerable for me. And I was like, you know what? This is an accounting approach to a behavioral problem.
Yeah.
And and I'm a behavior analyst, so why am I putting up with this? And it's really not fair, the way diet programs are set up, to have a restriction and expect users to follow it without really having a how. How do you do this?
Yeah.
How does this fit into your life? You just kind of like lay it over your life, and it kind of takes it over with all the demands. So I'm a little, I guess, feeling bad when I feel like a failure at like something like a weight loss program. And then I had this, realization that I really don't have to do it this way. And I became inspired that other people are using these programs and feeling the same way. And you know what, let's redefine it. Let's do it the behavioral way, actually, you know, um, solve the problem with something that we already know in behavioral science to be effective.
Yeah. Yeah. You laid a lot out there that we want to unpack here for sure. Like, I've never really heard it described that way, but it makes a lot of sense. Like this idea of like an accounting method for a health and weight loss is like you're going to put it's just calories in, calories out, and we don't care how you get there. You just have to have, a calorie deficit at the end of the day or something like that. And it really doesn't take into account a lot of times like just the behavioral context of somebody, like what's they're going on in their daily life or their routine. And they know in the back of their minds, like, I got to have this deficit, or I've got to cut these carbs out, or this protein or fat or whatever it is. But it's very much like numbers driven. So when we talk about applying behavioral science to that, what are some of the things that we do or that you do differently, taking that approach versus just a simple, normal American is 2,500 calories, you're going to be on a 2,000 calorie diet or whatever.
Hmm. Well, the restriction programs, it's really where you put your attention, to answer your
Yeah.
question. So, rather than attending to this rule and making sure that, you're following it and ending your day with your, green check mark or blue dot or your beautiful graph, um, rather than attending to the numbers, we're attending to how your body feels. And it begins with the assumption, first of all, that the user is an expert on their day. They know what their patterns are. And it might just be a matter of taking a moment to zoom out and really notice and recognize those patterns that are maintaining this weight that you are interested in changing. And so you're attending to how you feel. So how your body feels, like, that's as simple as, am I feeling satisfied when I go to bed, or am I feeling like I'm a little bit full? And it also requires attending to like mood or arousal levels. When we're feeling tired, everything's harder. We're
Yeah.
we're really not going to have the day that we wanted to have, because everything's like kind of uphill when you're tired. So becoming aware of all the variables, and then using behavior analytic techniques to create some distance between you and your patterns, and provide an opportunity to do something differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. I've done a little bit of work with some behavioral analysts in some of my consulting with Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities here in Georgia. And it seems like behavioral analysts are really good at coming up with, I mean, their reports had data and statistics and all this kind of stuff. To me, as an outside, I was working on something totally different. As an outside observer, it seems like, holy cow, this is a lot. And it can seem really intimidating for a user that's really trying to maybe just get into a healthier, maybe a healthier weight, or they're trying to promote some positive lifestyle habits. Like, is there, can it be intimidating to be like, oh, I've got to like analyze my behavior and figure out how that's going to happen? What are some of the tricks of the trade that we can do to kind of make it not so scary and maybe more approachable?
Well, I've never heard behavior analysis described that way, so that's interesting. And I like getting the raw reaction. It's really, I know it's an intimidating phrase, behavior analyst, but it just begins with recognizing some patterns. And one of the things that's really super quick and easy that creates some distance between you and some habit that you're trying to break is just rule breaking, just doing it differently, just one time, a non-commitment. Let me see how I feel if I just like don't eat anything after dinner and I just skip the snack and go to bed. Like, how is that going to make me feel? Let me have that experience, and I'm not committing to it. It's not going to be like I'm never going to have snack before bedtime again, but let me just see how it affects me. How do I feel? um you know did I go to sleep better? Did I wake up hungrier and enjoy breakfast more? And have an opportunity to have that experience. And it could work with non-food things too, like making an effort to connect with people better, and noticing when maybe if you're trying to lose weight, maybe you find yourself thinking about other people's bodies, which isn't helpful.
Yeah.
And making more of an effort to connect there. But the whole goal of behavior analysis is to understand how habits are actually solutions. They're
Yeah.
solving a problem. If all habits are adaptive, even if they're not helpful, they solved a problem for you. And that's why they're a habit, because you practice them over and over, because they're effectively solving your problem. And that's called a functional approach. And it's also part of the app, where users look at some type of problematic response they experienced that day, and try to identify the solution that it was like the problem it was actually solving. And from there, you can identify an alternative response. And once you identify that, then you just need to try it, try as a rule breaking exercise. Let me try this instead. I do tend to go crazy before I go to bed, and I do have some trouble sleeping. Let me just try skipping that, instead, and decide that I want to get cozy on the couch, and that's going to be how I'm going to spend my evening, or read a book or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, you said something there that's I think very simple to say, but super super profound. Which is like the habit is the solution. I was at a opioid addiction conference a while back, and one of the speakers said, like, the addiction is not the problem, like the addiction is the solution, and really it's understanding the driver behind what led this person to seek out, in this case, opioids or whatever it is. It's not because they like it's just a bad thing that they started doing. I mean, maybe there's a small segment of people that get like chemically dependent or something like that, but for the majority of people, like, these habits are their way of either filling a need or blocking a pain or whatever it is, and driving down to the root is really where change happens. So that's awesome. I love that. um,
Yeah.
when it comes specifically to like health and weight loss, I mean, obviously there's tons of things that you could look at, right? Like, it could be sleep, it could be exercise, it could be diet. Like, um, is there one of those factors that you find is more successful? Like, let's look at this first because that's an easy one for people to kind of get on board with, and then once we kind of do a little rule breaking here and see how it works, if we feel better, then we can move on to something else. Or kind of what's the approach that you find most helpful in this kind of situation?
I think the first goal is to recognize
Okay.
what's going on. And um I really like this idea of visualizing your day, like zoomed out. Like if you could be an objective observer, like seeing the players and the context and the variables, and recognizing how this domino started when you were engaging in some negative thinking and allowed it to get carried away, or something like that. And then you also have internal cueing that leads to. So one of the early recommendations in the program is to eat more fruits and vegetables. And, that's common
Yeah.
recommendation of any weight loss program because they're healthy and because they're high in fiber and low in calories. But the reason no way users eat more fruits and vegetables is because of the way it makes your belly feel, and it provides a cue to internally that you feel different, and that feeling different provides some behavioral momentum that you can have this motivation to continue responding in a way that is going to continue making you feel good.
Yeah. So like little like rule breaker, little experiments, and then you're kind of taking that in, right? Like the result of that, and then they're trying to internalize it over time. How much of it too, like, is, I don't know if you've probably read the book because you're in this field. That book, Tiny Habits. I can't remember who wrote it. Um, I think
Oh,
he's a
Atomic
behavioral psych.
Habits.
No, Tiny Habits.
Oh,
I
Tiny
think
Habits.
I can't remember the guy's name. He is a PhD. Maybe he's in that same field, but he talks about like flossing teeth, and he's like, so the tiny habit is I wanted to floss my teeth every day, so the tiny habit I came up with was I'm gonna floss one tooth every morning, and like one tooth became two teeth, and then whatever, like it's not this huge giant I'm going to lose 30 pounds, or I'm going to, whatever it is, exercise 5 times a week and watch what I eat and be better at sleeping. Like, starting with the tiny things, like, is this the tiny experience of the rule breaking kind of fitting in that same vein, like where you're trying to take this thing that could be really, really intimidating, and making it very, very approachable.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's interesting that the flossing, because I also I struggled to start flossing,
Yeah.
right? I don't think anyone like really
Yeah, no one enjoys
naturally is
it.
drawn. And at some point I just realized that I thought it was gross. I didn't like touching the floss after it did the flossing. And yeah, like from there I was able to figure out how to do it so I didn't have that reaction. And then I was able to contact the natural reinforcement of having a super clean mouth and using the mouthwash and feeling it go through my teeth. And it was just a natural reinforcement that's going to maintain it. um Actually, brushing and flossing after a meal is one of the strategies in no
Oh,
way.
okay.
And we use it as not a behavior we're trying to like increase, but as a cueing that when your mouth is super clean, you tend to want to keep it that way. And anybody, when
Oh,
we
yeah,
brush our
yeah.
teeth, we don't like go eat something right away because we want to maintain the way it feels and, you know,
Yeah.
we have fresh breath and all that. But yeah, the shaping, starting small and growing into something bigger is a big part of the program. And there's it's you want to the approach is just very natural, and we're constantly looking for the natural reinforcement and trying to contact that as much as possible. I was talking to a physical trainer, and we were talking about how when you start a new training program, a new workout program, there's you're all excited and want to do it, but then eventually you're gonna have your clothes on, you're gonna be at the gym, and you're just like not gonna feel like it. And
Yeah.
you're gonna be stuck there with that problem. Like, do I force myself and kind of hate it? Or how do I initiate this in a positive way? And it's really contacting natural reinforcers. It's not the big, I want to lose this much weight. It's the immediate, how does this response right now make me feel? I'm going to feel like, that really great tired feeling that you can only get when you work out, or I'm going to have a better night's sleep, or, working out makes me feel like a healthy person. And I like the way that feels. And, and that's really the key is having immediate reinforcement that's natural because it comes out of the activity.
Yeah, as opposed to this like long tail outcome that might or might not come true, right?
Right.
Well, in that same vein, then, like, exercising is a habit, eating healthy is a habit. Like, so I feel like there's two sides of this coin, right? There's like picking up new habits, but then stopping other habits, like maybe stopping your midnight snack or whatever it is. Like, and they both come with their challenges. But when it comes specifically to stopping, like, let's say we see this habit as detrimental or not helping us achieve our goals, like, why is stopping that habit such a struggle for most people?
Well, really it's the questions that we ask,
Okay.
that you want to ask the question, how is this habit helpful to me? How does it fit into the web of my daily life? Like, what is cueing it to happen? And then what does it inspire that happens next? Like, why is it so essential to me? Or how is it so essential to me? And that you need to recognize that habits, you can't just like drop a habit. It's not like you can just delete it, and there's a space there, there's that unmet need now. So what am I going to do instead? And it needs to be as readily accessible and as reinforcing, or more so, than the habit you're trying to get rid of. um, I was talking to someone about like going to bed earlier, and that's something I think a lot of adults want. They want to
Yeah.
get an earlier start on their day, and they want to feel rested and really be as productive as possible. And going to bed earlier, like, it's not really a matter of why can't I get myself to go to bed earlier. You have to ask the question, what do I do in the evening that I value? What do I do with my time, and why is it important to me, and what role does it play in my life? And because when I go to bed earlier, I'm going to be getting that extra sleep, but I'm going to be exchanging it for whatever I was doing in the evening that I was finding important enough to stay up for. So thinking about the ecology of our responses is really how you want to approach habit change.
Yeah. So not looking at like an isolated behavior pattern or behavior thing, but looking at it kind of within the context of your life, your situation, what's going on. I like that. The idea of like, why am I staying up late? What am I going to be exchanging if I go to bed?
Right. Yeah.
um, well, tell us a little bit about the app itself or the program itself. Then, like, um, onboarding. Like, how have you obviously, like, let's first start with like what decided to make, or what made you decide that this is going to be an app and not like um maybe a something that you deliver in a clinic or via online web calls or Zoom calls or something like that. Like why was an app attractive? Was it just because everybody's using diet apps and you're like, we're going to make something better?
Probably. Yeah, I never really stopped to consider another solution. I was using diet apps, and you know, I just I like the convenience of the app,
Uh-huh.
and it's a nice platform for acquiring new information in interactive and bite-sized ways that um when you download the app, the there's little bite-sized information. There's like a lot of ways to engage with it, where there's like a daily question and some behavior analytic information that goes with that. But to really be successful, you would engage with these interactive behavior analysis content modules, and
Okay.
they're really short, and there's not too many of them. But the idea is that you have all the information about your situation that you already need. And what is causing the frustration with your attempts to make this change is some lack of information on how to go about that. And if you can change your point of view to something that's more objective, that is noticing which variables are important, and how things are interconnected, and how habits are adaptive, then you can make the best decisions for you based on that. So like something like rule breaking, which is like the very first thing that users are asked to do, that I'm not telling you which rules to break. You have to find them in your life, and it's not hard. Once you notice one rule, you'll notice others and others. And then at the end of each day, there's an opportunity to reflect on how your day went. And those reflection questions, you review and write in the answers or select your responses. And the idea is that you think about the rules you broke, you respond to some questions that are meant to maintain a positive mood, and then you engage with some questions that are specifically targeting your motivation, so that you can stay engaged with how you want your daily life to change, without making it like this really big New Year's resolution type
Yeah.
thing. And it's just your daily life, and tomorrow's a new day. And if something went wrong today, that's a learning experience. It's all part of the change process. You're not failing. It's part of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a super big thing for, especially for anything like behavioral change in general, but like weight loss and something like that, where it can feel like people feel guilty if they, they had this goal. Maybe it was not going to be to eat their midnight snack or whatever, and then they do, and now they feel guilty. They feel like a failure. Like this idea of it's just a blip on the radar, right? It's a data point now that we're going to use later in the change. I think it's very, very helpful. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the all or nothing thinking. um we have in behavior analysis, there's something called a differential reinforcement of other behavior, DRO. And the whole idea is that you're reinforced if you avoid doing this one thing. And that's what diet apps are about. You get your sticker or your check mark or your graph or whatever if you can maintain this calorie allotment or points or whatever you're doing. But then you find yourself in a situation where you're like really hungry, and you decide to like have a second slice of pizza. I'm always going to pizza as my examples because that's like my most craved food. It's just
Yeah.
like
I
the
mean, who
best
doesn't
food
like a
to
good
me.
slice of pizza?
It's just universally understood. And then your day, from there, your day is your diet app is not happy with you, and
Yeah.
it's not gonna give you that thing that you were supposed to earn today. So you find yourself in this situation where you are very hungry because you've been trying to do 1,300 calories for the last week, and you're also dealing with this feeling of failure, and even mature adults, that's, something that doesn't feel great. Now you're stuck with that. And what how could how is this situation setting you up for success? It's like a really bad state to be in. So it becomes like this very rigid path you're on, and that can very readily derail
Yeah.
at the slightest, hiccup.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious about the app itself. So, like, how many users have you had on the go through the program or through the app, and kind of like success stories that you've seen? Like, I'm sure you've got the data on that kind of stuff, but um, like, what kind of reception have you seen in the app itself?
Well, the app is brand new. It just went up, and we're actually using our beta testers to
Okay.
develop more functionality for version 2. And then when version 2 comes out, that's when I'm going to start advertising and let everybody know about it.
Okay.
So we're not quite at that point yet, but I'm very excited
Pre-launch
to
phase. Yeah.
get, yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of like a soft launch where you can download No Way from Android or Apple right now. Um, but we haven't been acquiring the user base just yet. We've been trying to tweak it so it's very polished and has as much functionality as possible.
Cool deal. Um,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So, what's the timeline then for like the actual launch date for No Way?
Well, it is out there. It's available now, but version 2 will be available for diet season, right around the
Okay.
holidays when everybody's like, I need
Going
a break
into
from feeling this.
Thanksgiving, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. I don't want this season to be complete torture. So that's where No Way can help for
Yeah,
sure.
awesome, cool deal. Well, Dr. Evans, thanks so much for being on the show. I think I know what you're going to say, but if there's um, one or two main points that you'd want a listener to walk away with, maybe like a single thing that we can take away and do right now in our daily lives to make whatever habit it is that we're looking at addressing, or lifestyle we're looking at addressing, what would it be?
Well, it would be, it's first of all, it's not your fault that you're struggling. And the first step is always to recognize the patterns, and that just empowers you to change them.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool deal. Well, where can people find out more about you, your work? No Way, I guess it's spelled no and then way, Weigh. And that's on
Mhm.
Android and the iOS store. But where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
Noa.com, and we
Okay.
have blog posts too that describe more about the approach and changing your point of view. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. Cool deal. We'll link to all that in the show notes. Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Okay, thank you so much. This was really fun.